You know what's funny? People half my age tell me they can't get out of bed before 9. They say they're exhausted. They say life has worn them down. And here I am, 104 years old, sitting at my kitchen table before the sun has even thought about rising, with a cup of warm lemon water in my hand, watching the stars fade. People always ask me, journalists, doctors, my grandchildren's grandchildren, they ask, how are you still here? How are you still sharp? How are you still going? And I always smile, because the answer isn't some pill. It isn't some expensive biohacking gadget. It isn't even good genes, though Lord knows I'm grateful for those too. The answer is something much simpler and much harder. And today I'm going to tell you everything. Stay with me. This might be the most important video you watch this year. My name doesn't matter as much as my story. What matters is that I have buried friends, outlived 2 of my own children, which is a grief no parent should carry, survived a war, a depression, 3 pandemics if you count what came before COVID, and I am still here, still laughing, still curious, still waking up at 4 a.m. every single morning, not because an alarm forces me to, but because something inside me wants to. That something, that internal fire, that is what I want to talk to you about today, because I believe every person watching this has that same fire inside them. Most people just don't know how to tend it. I've had over a century to figure out how to tend mine. Let me save you a few decades of trial and error. Let's start with the obvious question. Why on earth does a 104-year-old wake up at 4 in the morning? The honest answer is I don't wake up at 4 a.m. I woke up at 4 a.m. There's a difference. When you wake up at a time, the clock is in charge. You're reacting. You're dragging yourself out of warmth into the cold because the world demands it. That's not a morning, that's a sentence. But when you wake up for a time, when there's something waiting for you, the bed can't hold you, your body rises before your mind even catches up. For me, what waits at 4 a.m. is the most precious thing on this earth. Silence. Not the silence of absence. The silence of potential. The silence of a world that hasn't yet been cluttered by noise and obligation and the endless demands of other people's urgency. I grew up working farms. I have watched my father wake before dawn every day of his adult life. Back then, we didn't talk about morning routines. We didn't have podcasts about productivity. But those early hours, those hours before the world woke, those were always the hours where I felt most like myself. Somewhere in my 40s, I let that go. I got busy, I slept later. I chased the rhythm of the modern world, and I'll be honest with you, those were some of my most exhausted years, not physically. Spiritually, I was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. It wasn't until I was in my late 60s, after retiring, that I returned to the early morning, and it felt like coming home. Now here's what the science says, because I've had doctors explain this to me many times over the years. The hours between roughly 4 and 6 a.m. are when your cortisol naturally begins to rise. Cortisol gets a bad reputation because in high chronic doses, yes, it's harmful, but that natural morning cortisol surge, that is your body handing you energy on a silver platter. That is your biology saying now is the time to be awake and alive. Most people sleep through that surge, and then they wonder why they feel groggy until 10 o'clock. I don't sleep through it. I ride it. I get up, I drink my lemon water warm, always warm, never cold, and I just sit for 15 minutes. I do nothing but breathe and exist. No phone, no television, no words. Just me and the dark and the slowly waking world in those 15 minutes. Something resets in me. Something that no amount of sleep can reset. It's like clearing a chalkboard. Everything I worried about yesterday is still there. I'm 104, not naive. The worries don't disappear, but they become smaller, more manageable. The silence gives me perspective. That is the first secret. Wake up for something, not just at something, and give yourself silence before you give yourself to the world. People look at me and they expect to see someone fragile, someone bent, someone shuffling around, waiting. And yes, I move more slowly than I did at 30. My knees have opinions now that they keep to themselves when I was younger. My back has a long memory for every foolish thing I ever asked of it. But I move. Every single day I move. This is non-negotiable for me. Has been for decades. Not because I was always disciplined, Lord, no, I had my lazy years. But because I noticed something undeniable. On the days I moved, I felt better. On the days I didn't, something dimmed. Like a lamp turned slightly lower, and over a lifetime I've learned never to turn that lamp lower on purpose. My movement now is simple. After my silence, I go outside, even in winter, especially in winter. I put on what I need to put on, and I go outside and I walk. Some mornings it's 20 minutes, some mornings it's 40. I don't have time for it. I walk until I feel like I've arrived somewhere inside myself. I used to think exercise was about the body. Now I know it's about the mind. The walk doesn't just move my legs, it moves my thoughts. Ideas I couldn't unlock while sitting come loose on the third lap, around the garden. Grief I've been holding loose and somewhere between the oak tree and the gate. The body and the mind are not separate things. They are one conversation, and movement is the language that keeps that conversation flowing. After the walk I stretch. Slowly. I was doing what people now call yoga before they had a name for it. My mother called it listening to your body. Same thing. I pay attention to where I'm tight, where I'm uncomfortable, where I'm holding tension without realizing it, and I breathe into those places. I don't force anything. I never force anything anymore. Force is for the young and the impatient. At my age, I know that almost everything opens if you give it enough patience and warmth. Twice a week, I do what my doctor calls resistance training, what I call not letting myself get weak. I lift small weights. I do gentle resistance exercises. Nothing heroic. But this, doctors have told me, is perhaps the single most important physical habit for aging well. Muscle doesn't just keep you strong. It keeps your metabolism active. It protects your bones. It keeps you functional and independent. And independence at any age is dignity. The body wants to work. It was built to work. When you stop giving it work, it begins to close up like a shop that's running out of reasons to stay open. Keep your body working. Give it movement every day, not punishment movement. There's a profound difference. I should tell you what I eat, because everyone asks. I should also warn you that I am not about to sell you a supplement or tell you that some exotic berry from a remote mountain is responsible for my longevity. If I see one more advertisement for a pill that promises to add decades to your life, I may say something unladylike. Here's what I eat. Food, real food, food that my grandmother would have recognized, food that was grown somewhere, not manufactured somewhere. Every morning after my walk and stretching, I eat breakfast. Always. I never skip it. My breakfast is usually eggs, 2 of them simply cooked, with whatever vegetables I have, some whole grain bread, and fruit, sometimes oats with nuts and honey, simple food prepared simply. Through the day, I eat smaller amounts more frequently. I don't gorge. I never have. I learned long ago that the feeling of being overfull is not satisfaction. It's your body crying for mercy. I eat until I feel good, not until I feel stuffed. That line, that discipline, that has probably done more for my health than any specific food. I eat very little sugar, not none. I am not a monk, but very little. I had a grandmother who told me when I was young, sugar is a liar. It tells you it will make you feel better, and then it takes more than it gives. She was right. She was also 97 when she said it, so I paid attention. I eat a lot of plants, not exclusively. I eat meat in modest amounts, but the majority of what goes into my body grows in soil. Vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, food with color, food with texture, food that still tastes like where it came from. I drink water constantly and tea, green tea in the morning, herbal tea in the evening. I gave up alcohol in my 80s, not because I had a problem, but because I noticed it was no longer serving me. My body told me clearly, and I listened. That's one gift of old age. Your body stops whispering and starts speaking plainly. What I don't do is follow trends. I have watched, over the course of a century, every dietary trend imaginable come and go. I have seen the thing that was going to save everyone's life one decade become the thing that was going to kill everyone. Next, I stopped chasing those rabbits long ago. I eat simply, consistently, and with gratitude. That's all. Here is where I want to spend the most time, because I believe this is where most people are losing their energy, not in their bodies, but in their minds. Energy is not just physical. I would argue it's not even primarily physical. I have known physically healthy people who were utterly drained, and I have known frail, elderly people, people who could barely walk, who radiated a vitality that lit up rooms. The difference was never in their muscles. It was in their relationship with their own minds. I read every single day, and for as long as I can remember, not for information. The internet will give you all the information you could ever drown in. I read for depth, for perspective, for the extraordinary gift of spending time inside someone else's thoughts and seeing the world differently for an hour. Reading keeps the mind elastic, and an elastic mind is a young mind, regardless of what year is on your birth certificate. I also write every morning after breakfast. I write in my journal, not a diary. I don't catalog events. I write thoughts, questions I'm sitting with, things I notice, things I'm grateful for, arguments with myself about ideas I haven't figured out yet. This practice of writing has done something for me that I can only describe as mental hygiene. Thoughts left inside the head circle grow and sometimes fester. Thoughts written down become examinable. They lose their power to haunt you once you can look at them on a page. I also never stopped being curious. This, I think, is the most important thing I can tell any person of any age. Curiosity is life. The moment you stop wondering, stop asking why, stop wanting to understand something new, a part of you begins to retire before the rest of you is ready. I am curious about everything. I learned to use a computer in my 80s. I learned some basic words in a third language in my 90s just because I wanted to. I asked my great-great-grandchildren to teach me about the music they listened to, because I wanted to understand their world, not dismiss it. Every week I try to learn something I didn't know before. Not a big thing, necessarily. Sometimes it's a fact about birds. Sometimes it's a word I didn't know. Sometimes it's understanding why a young person thinks about something the way they do. But always something. Curiosity is the engine that keeps the mind willing to stay alive. I want to talk about something that I don't see discussed enough when people talk about longevity and energy and health, love, connection, purpose. I have outlived many people I have loved. That is the mathematics of a long life. It is also the cruelest part. Every year that I am given is also a year in which I carry more absence. I have learned to hold both things, the gratitude for being here and the grief for those who are not. But here's what I know without any doubt. The years I have felt most alive, the years that energized me beyond any sleep or diet or exercise, were the years I was most deeply connected to other people and to something beyond myself. Purpose is not a luxury. It is fuel. When you have a reason to get up, not just a to-do list, but a reason, something that makes your presence on this earth matter to at least one other person, your body cooperates. It finds reserves you didn't know it had. I have watched people retire and shrink, not because aging shrank them, but because they removed their purpose and nothing rushed in to replace it. They told themselves they had earned the right to stop contributing, and maybe they had, but the body doesn't know what to do with purposelessness. It starts to interpret it as no longer needed, and something begins to wind down. I never stopped contributing. The form has changed. I can no longer do what I did at 40 or 60 or 80, but I still offer something to the people around me. I still show up, I still listen. I still share what I've learned when anyone wants to hear it. I am still, in small ways, useful. And every morning when I wake at 4 a.m., that's part of what pulls me out of the bed. Not an obligation, not guilt, but the quiet, steady knowledge that this day has something in it for me to give. Find your purpose, tend it like a garden, it will feed you for life. So there you have it, the secret to waking up at 4 a.m. at 104 years old with something that feels still after all this time, like energy, like hope, like wanting to be here. It isn't one thing. It was never one thing. It is silence claimed before the world takes it. A body kept moving with respect, not punishment. Food that is real and eaten with gratitude. A mind kept curious and elastic and honest with itself. Connection to other human beings. A reason, however humble, to be here. None of this is expensive. None of this requires a special gene or a miracle. Most of this, your grandparents probably knew and quietly practiced without making a YouTube video about it. But the world has gotten loud and fast and complicated. And in all that noise, the simple things have gotten hard to hear. So if you take nothing else from this old person's rambling, take this. Start tomorrow morning, 15 minutes earlier than you need to. Sit somewhere quiet. Don't look at your phone. Don't speak. Just breathe. And ask yourself, what am I waking up for? When you can answer that question with something that lights even a small warmth in your chest, you've found your 4 a.m. The rest will follow. Thank you for spending this time with me. At my age, time is the most honest currency I have left, and I don't spend it carelessly. The fact that you watch this tells me you're looking for something real. I hope you found a little of it here. Now go get some sleep so you can wake up early.